Hello and welcome to my channel. This is a brand new channel called Global Sisters. My name is Samantha Inesta. I am the founder and executive director of a global nonprofit called Be a Sister to a Sister. What we do is we help survivors of human trafficking, exploitation and abuse, and domestic violence find a life of self-sustainability, breaking the cycle of interdependence. This channel is dedicated to building the gaps and the bridges between human rights and women's rights, and how the human rights that we see in the global stage and the world affect women everywhere. As we look at the news and as we see so many things happening, there is a lot of different players and a lot of different actors happening in what we're seeing going on. The biggest thing that's happening right now that's dominating the news is, of course, Ukraine, and what Russia is doing to the Ukraine and what's happening to the people there and all the horror stories that are happening. Most recently, there have been news that has come out where Russian troops have gone into certain cities in the Ukraine and they've done horrific things to people. They've tortured and killed them. But one of the other things that has been happening is that women have been raped, and women are being raped. And unfortunately, that is a symptom and a cause of war no matter where you are in this world. There's always that campaign. Women always pay the highest price for it, unfortunately. And so a lot of times when we look at things like this, we tend to separate it. And a lot of times governments separate it. There's war and there's women's rights. And sometimes those two don't coincide together, which is a bad thing. So when we talk about things like, war crimes, yes, it does come into play, when you talk about war crimes, but it's more of how many people were killed, the destruction that was done to another country. You don't really see much of an outcry of what has happened to women, during times of war in a lot of these human rights crises. What we do hear more about with women is that they're displaced, they and their children are displaced, and, they have nowhere to go. We hear a lot about their displacement, they're starving, they don't know where to go, and all of those things are important. But when it comes to women being violated in really, really horrific ways, yes, we do hear it, but then it just disappears. It goes away. And then we're left with looking at the actual battle, all of the governmental involvement in it, all the other countries. It's very quickly pushed to the side. And that's like that with a lot of different wars, with a lot of different takeovers. When we saw in Afghanistan with the Taliban, making all of these empty promises about how they were going to give women their rights and they were going to let them go to school and they were going to let them do all of these things. And surprise, surprise, none of that happened. And now it's getting even worse. And not only are they not allowing Afghani women or young girls to get an education, but now they're actually attacking and in some cases killing them because they're trying to get some sort of an education. And that again is being separated. Yes, we do hear it in the news, we do hear it, but it's not really something that a lot of people are really considering part of the humanitarian effort to get, help to the people to get the country to where they need to be. Women's issues have always been put on the back burner when it comes, of course, to a lot of issues globally and even locally. I know even with this pandemic that has raged through the whole world, that a lot of rates of domestic violence went up, a lot of rates of child sexual abuse have went up, and yes, those numbers are out there, but, they're out there, they give you these statistics, and then you don't hear about anything at all anymore. That is a very integral part of what has been happening during this pandemic, and it is a human rights issue. Just like everything else that COVID has brought out, it's a human rights issue. And we need to start looking at it as such. We need to stop separating, women's issues from human rights issues. It's all human rights issues. I know that there is a problem that some people have with the word feminist. The word feminist has gotten a lot of derogatory attention. It's been used to stigmatize women, to stand up for their rights. It's been used to keep them silent. And feminism is not what larger society says feminism is. Feminism is not a man-hating movement. It's not an anti-family, anti-children, anti-woman movement. If anything, it's pro all of those things. What feminism really means is women standing up for their human rights. The right not to be raped, the right not to be tortured or attacked, to have, protections from domestic violence, any type of sexual exploitation. Even trafficking is considered a feminist issue because it's a woman's rights issue. Feminism can even go so far as, a woman that has children but is not able to get the services that she needs because of whatever situation that she's in. That's a feminist movement. That is a feminist issue. But it is also a human rights issue. Feminism is human rights. It's not what women have been told it is for many, many years. And we need to stop separating those two. We need to bring them together. And a lot of this has been happening for many, many years. Women's issues have been always put to the back burner. And whenever women come forward, and we all come forward as a group, and fight for our rights and fight for the things that we need, we're not really taken seriously. I mean, I remember the first Women's March that I attended, here in New York City. It was massive, it was huge, and, women were out there, and there were some men out there and fathers and stuff, and, being allies trying to stand by our side. But I don't really feel like it made that much of a difference, because women's issues, no matter where you are seen to be trivial. They're separated. They're separated in times of war. They're separated in times of global catastrophes. It's just separated. No, that's a separate issue. That needs to be put somewhere else. There needs to be more resources, more humanitarian efforts to help women that are caught in war, in any type of political unrest, no matter what country it is. It shouldn't be separated. And there should be real education with it. I mean, not only is there rape and sexual exploitation that happens during war and these big humanitarian crises, but there's also a lot of trafficking, a lot of human trafficking. When the war broke out in Syria all those years ago, that is still raging, just like Yemen, things are happening in Palestine, things are happening in so many other countries in Africa. There was a lot of sex trafficking happening there. Just the same way when ISIS went in and started dismantling a lot of these different countries and setting up their caliphates, there was a lot of human trafficking happening there. There were a lot of issues with women happening there. But if we heard about it, we heard very little about it. And that was it. And that was dismissed because the more important, larger issue was what ISIS was doing there, the war and everything. And that is important, but you cannot push aside the fact that all these horrific things were happening to women because they're humans too. We're all human. We shouldn't look at it, in a larger sense where, yes, it's a humanitarian effort, because all these people are being affected. Yes, everyone's being affected, but women are being affected more. They're being affected in more of an insidious and evil way, and it needs to be looked at like that. It needs to stop being compartmentalized and put somewhere else. And so that's what we need to start thinking about. And that's really one of the things that I want to try to bridge the gap with because, there's so many things happening right now all over the world, even in the United States. It's very hard to keep up with everything. But what I've noticed is that even during times of war, even, during times of really great catastrophe in a lot of different countries, when we look at Bosnia and Croatia and the systematic campaign of rape on those women in that country that are still to this day dealing with the psychological effects of it, and yes, we heard about that. And yes, the leader of that country got convicted for war crimes, but it just seems that everything that happened to those women just slowly faded away. We need to not forget about these things because this is just as important as the war itself. In every community, in every country, in every state, in every village, women carry a lot of weight. We are a really precious resource and commodity. And if you allow that resource and commodity to constantly be attacked and raped and killed over and over again, you're going to have a very crumbling foundation of your country, of your city, of your village. Women contribute just as much as men do, and women contribute to life itself in general. Without women, life does not continue. If you do not treat women with the same respect and with the same level of urgency of wanting to help the way you do men and with other things, then life itself is going to start to dissipate. Because the more women are being tortured, raped, trafficked, killed, the less that society is going to grow and is going to heal from whatever is happening. And that's something that really needs to stop. There needs to be more emphasis, there needs to be more focus on what happens to women in these types of situations. And so that is the goal for Global Sisters. This is, like I said, it's a brand new channel, and I'm trying to get it off the ground. If there's anything that you would like for me to talk about, if there's something that you would like for me to, to put out there, to expand, on, or whatever the case may be, or maybe something that you as a woman in whatever country you're from feel that this is an issue that's happening in your country that's not getting enough attention, you can always contact me, and I will try to get that message out there as much as I can. You can contact me at Samantha at beasister2asister.org, and you can, just tell me what it is that you want me to speak about, whatever it is in your country that you want me to speak about, and I will try to get the message out there. There's just so much going on in so many countries, I do have a regular podcast on Spotify that I speak about it from country to country. I'm going to continue to raise more awareness on a lot of these things, and also too, it doesn't have to be a time of war when this is happening to women. It could be the culture of the country itself that just has high rates of domestic violence or high rates of rape that is really, really hurting women, and they can't get the resources that they need, as well as women who have survived so many horrific things and just find themselves caught in that cycle with no way out. And there needs to be a way out for a lot of these women. I feel like, once some women start to get out of that process, somehow they get pulled back in by some extenuating circumstance. And that needs to change for them. We need to work together to help them to find that path of self-sustainability so that they don't get desperate or caught up in a cycle of interdependency or wanting to run back to a life that, totally broke them only because they have nowhere else to go or they don't know where else to go. And so these are the things that need to be brought to light, and these are the things that happen time and time again, over and over. And women's rights are human rights. Feminism is women's rights and human rights. Being a feminist is not a horrible thing. Being a feminist is a good thing. That means that you are standing up not only for yourself, but for other women, for your daughters, for your sisters, for your cousins, whoever. That's what a feminist is. It's not what a lot of how they say the male patriarchy has defined feminism. The reason why they define feminism that way is because obviously they don't want women to stand up for their rights. So if they take that word and they take the femininity out of it, and they take the idea of woman out of it, that it's going to scare some women into thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to look that way. I don't hate men. I don't hate children. I want to have a family, Oh, maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe I should be quiet, because if I'm quiet, then they won't call me all those horrible names. And that's their weapon to silence women. But fortunately, because of a lot of other adjacent movements like Me Too and Time's Up, a lot of women are seeing that being a feminist is not that. There are a lot of women out there that are feminists, that are happily married, they have children, they don't hate men, they are women. and they're out there and they're fighting for their rights. So being a feminist is not about all of those negative things. Being a feminist is about women's rights, women's human rights. Let's try to shift that paradigm, and let's try to connect the dots of human rights, women's rights. It's the same thing. No matter what happens, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what is going on, women's rights are human rights. They should not be a separate issue. It shouldn't be for only a certain group to handle. It should be for everybody. Women's rights are human rights, and it should be for everybody. And we, as women all over the world, need to speak out more about that, come together, help one another, yes, be sisters, and help and try to bridge this gap so that women will get more of the resources, women will get more of the help, and a lot of women's issues on the global stage of human rights will not get pushed to the side. Thank you. And I really hope that I can grow this channel with your help, with all my sisters out there in different countries. I really hope that we can grow this channel and just bring more awareness, not only to bridging the gap between human rights and women's rights, but also to help a lot of survivors that are out there, whether you survived human trafficking, domestic violence, any type of exploitation, help to find a path of self-sustainability to break that cycle of interdependency. You don't have to go back to that situation. You don't have to go back to that country. You don't have to go back to that person. You don't have to go back to that home. You can move forward, and we can help you. So with that, I'm going to end this video, and I hope that I can connect with a lot of you out there so that we can make a really huge difference. Thank you.